Donald Trump is a man who knows where his bread is buttered. I'll explain what I'm talking about in a second. I'll probably put it better during the show. Joe Biden is bumbling. Joe Biden is angry. I'll tell you why Joe Biden's so angry. And finally, the greatest sports achievement I've ever seen in my life. All that's coming up right now on I'm Right. Do you remember back in 2012 when Donald Trump, pre-president Donald Trump, pre-presidential candidate Donald Trump, began harassing Barack Obama about his birth certificate? You all remember the birther movement, right? It was this gigantic movement during, Obama's presidency, saying that he was actually born in Kenya, he wasn't an American, he was a secret Muslim. There were all these crazy conspiracy theories around Obama. Now, Obama did himself no favors with that kind of stuff because he was so secretive, sealing his college transcripts and all these things. But this birther movement got really, really, really big, at least in some Republican circles. Along comes Donald Trump, not a presidential candidate, just a billionaire, just a man in the public eye, and he starts blasting away at Obama about this whole thing and saying, I believe it, and saying, we have his quote out there, an extremely credible source has called my office and told me that Barack Obama's birth certificate is a fraud, end quote. I'll tell you what, we're going to circle back to that in just a minute. Hang on. Now, Donald Trump is about to speak at the March for Life. Everybody knows what the March for Life is, or at least people who don't only rely on the mainstream media since they ignore it every year. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people descend on Washington, D.C. for the pro-life cause, which is a wonderful cause we should all be a part of. They should be applauded and praised. It should be noted every year there are no assaults, there's no crime, there's not even any trash left behind. They go just to promote life. Well, here's the thing. Republican presidential candidates and Republican presidents, once they get there, have to at least pretend to be pro-life at some point in time. However, none of them have ever gone to March for Life. None of them have ever spoken at March for Life. That's weird, right? I mean, George Bush, love him or hate him, known to be a pro-life president, did not speak at March for Life. Ronald Reagan did not speak at March for Life. Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, is about to speak at March for Life. Quote, see you on Friday. Big crowd talking about the March for Life. And then March for Life sends out their tweet saying, thank you, real Donald Trump, for continuously working to build a culture of life where the beauty and dignity of every human life are valued and protected. You know what Donald Trump is excellent at, ladies and gentlemen? I'm not saying he's not pro-life. He very well probably is pro-life. He's excellent at taking the pulse of his own party and taking the pulse of his base and making sure there is a clear dividing line between him and the other side. So many times politicians will want to say, look, we're all kind of in this together. Look, I'm sure Obama loves the country too, just like I love the country. I love it that Donald Trump doesn't play those games. That's the bad guy. I'm the good guy. Let's rock and roll. Here's Donald Trump talking about healthcare and everything else.
What's going on now is the single greatest scam in the history of American politics. The Democrats want to take away your guns. They want to take away your health care. They want to take away your vote. They want to take away your freedom. They want to take away your judges. They want to take away everything. We can never let this happen. We're fighting to drain the swamp, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And you see why we have to do it. Because our country is at stake like never before. It's all very simple. They're trying to stop me because I'm fighting for you, and I'll never let that happen.
Does that sound like somebody who has his pulse on the base of his party? Oh, and there's another Republican issue. I've seen this time after time. I lived in Arizona for a time, and while I was there, we had Governor Jan Brewer. Now, Jan Brewer was not, if you were to grade along a scale, not some far-right Republican, conservative, crazy person like I am. She was just, a standard, average, moderate GOP Republican. However, she signed on to one pretty benign anti-illegal immigration bill, and she immediately became a fire-breathing dragon to the left and an absolute lion to everybody on the right. Why? because there is no more underserved portion of the Republican voting bloc than those who actually care about illegal immigration. Every Republican, they'll give, tacit approval that maybe we'll get some more border security. What we need is a comprehensive plan, which is always code for either I don't want to do anything or I'm just going to pass amnesty with the idiot Democrats when I get there. If you are a Republican and you're dying to have a president be hardcore on the border to get that border secure, you have never had anybody speak to you the way Donald Trump has spoken to you, and that is a big part of his popularity.
We're going to have strong, incredible borders, and people are going to come into our country, but they're going to come into our country legally. They're going to come in legally. We're going to build a wall. It's going to be built.
Now, allow me to circle back one more time and address the birther thing. You remember what he said. An extremely credible source has called my office and told me that Barack Obama's birth certificate is a fraud. No, we're not going to do a birther section on the show just now. Sorry, do not get your hopes up. But let me tell you a little story, ladies and gentlemen. Long before I was gracing you with my presence on the television, I was actually running for United States Congress in Arizona twice. Lost both times, not to brag or anything like that. And let me tell you, a lot of Republicans believe Barack Obama was not born in America. I'm not saying that's my position. And I'm not saying I would have ever taken that position. You know who did publicly? Donald Trump. Donald Trump is willing to take positions that are popular with his own base because he's not afraid of being shamed and embarrassed, maybe even on issues where he should be shamed and embarrassed. He's not afraid of being shamed and embarrassed by the American media. Now, I'm not saying you have to take a position on Barack Obama's birth certificate, hardly a relevant thing these days. But it does bring out the one quality that every single Republican going forward should have. They should all have this quality. No, not to call someone out for their birth certificate quality, the quality where you don't care what the media thinks. And all these Republicans run on that, right? They all pretend, well, I'll take on the media. I hate the media. And then they get to Washington, D.C. in about 30 seconds. And okay, I worked with the Democrats. Do you guys like me more now? Will you print something nice about me? Donald Trump has never done that. Why? Because he knows where his bread is buttered. Do you want to know how you go from a bored, listless Republican Party suffering under 8 years of Barack Obama to having people fill 20,000 person stadiums with 10,000 people standing out front just to hear one man speak? That one man understands who votes for him, who supports him, who donates, who volunteers, who wears T-shirts and the MAGA hats, who puts up yard signs, who goes to rallies, who brings their friends to the polls. Politicians spend so much time trying to bring new people in to their coalition. And look, winning elections is about coalition building. There's no question about it. But if you spend too much time reaching out to him, you know what? Eventually you turn around and you find you've ignored the guy who loved you most and got you there in the first place. Donald Trump's going to March for Life. I don't know how pro-life he is. I don't care. He's been outstanding on that issue, and that issue is important to me. So whatever he feels about it personally, it's a politically very, very, very savvy move to be the first president to get up and speak there. I know pro-life people. That movement, they don't stay home on Election Day. They drag people to the polls with them on Election Day. And you can yell all day long about Donald Trump's divorces and infidelity and this and that. If they think they have a lion in the White House fighting for the unborn, people will lay down in traffic for Donald Trump. Good for him. Savvy move, and it's the right move. Good for you, President Trump. All right, we have Amanda Prestigiacomo coming up with the Daily Wire. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I'm right. But first, let's talk about betdsi.com/Jesse. Let me tell you something you need to do, and you need to do it like now. Make a deposit. Go to betdsi.com/Jesse and make a deposit. Oh, and before I forget, don't forget to use the promo code Jesse120. That's JESSE, promo code 120. And listen, I'm a food guy. I live for my stomach. It's embarrassing. I'm a complete slave to the restaurant. I am. And you know what I look for anytime I'm in a new place and I'm looking for something to eat? The one major qualification a place must have: how long have you been doing it? Don't give me the place that just popped up on the corner. Show me the mom and pop shop that's been doing it for a decade. You want to know how long BetDSI has been doing it? Try 2 decades. 20 years of making the fastest payouts in the industry, of making sure their customers are well taken care of. And now, if you go to betdsi.com/Jesse, use the promo code Jesse120, they will do a 120% match. 120% match. People, that's free money. Go make your deposit. BetDSI.com/Jesse. Let's go bet on some football, bet on some politics, baseball, basketball, UFC, you name it. Let's go have some fun. BetDSI.com. Joining me now from the Daily Wire, one of my favorite people in the world, Amanda Prestigiacomo. Amanda, did I finally get that name right this time?
Close enough. It's pretty good.
Well, what did I screw up? What is it?
Prestigiacomo.
So I didn't do it right at all. Prestigiacomo. Amanda Prestigiacomo. All right, we got it this time. All right, we're rolling. March for Life. Donald Trump is, by all accounts, certainly is not a card-carrying Christian, or has not been most of his life, meaning he doesn't seem like a natural fit for the pro-life movement. I'll tell you that's part of why I was against him so much in the primary. The dude's been dynamite on the issues of pro-life, and now he's speaking, the first president ever to speak at March for Life. My question to you is, why?
Yeah, I think, what we've seen with President Trump is we've really seen, at the very least, a political transformation, if not a personal transformation. President Trump was on record saying he was very pro-choice. Then that kind of evolved to not really understanding the pro-life position, but trying to take that position during the primary. For example, he was talking about being pro-life while he was running in the election and saying that we were going to punish women who have abortions. And if you're on the pro-life side, you're kind of like, oh, no, that's not our position. But then you've seen Trump, you've seen him, he was trying, but you've seen him come full circle and really understand the pro-life position and why we are pro-life, and being around, evangelicals and Christians and Catholics, surrounding him and supporting him. I think it's hard to say that he would not have some sort of personal transformation as well. I don't really know for sure, but it seems like he's kind of, the way he talks about the issue now, talked about at the UN. He's moved policy to help pro-lifers. It really does seem like he has changed, at least politically, if not personally as well.
Amanda, on a bit of a darker note, what are we at? 40, 50 million dead at this point in time. This is an issue that, honestly, everybody knows. I love America. I'm as rah-rah, red, white, and blue as it gets. This is an issue of shame for me. I look at that number and I'm frankly mortified that my supposedly civilized Western country just does this. And now not only do the people do it, they celebrate it, they shout it from the rooftops. Look how many babies I personally murdered. And I don't know what to make of this as somebody who loves America and knows I'm blessed to be an American, but I look and we kill babies here, a lot of them.
Yeah, it's definitely a really dark part of our history and present as of now. I think we're making progress in the pro-life movement with the advances of science, and we're really mobilizing, as you've seen through the March for Life. We have 100,000 people in attendance. But as that happens, you have stronger pushback. So now when we're trying to do little things like push pro-life legislation that makes it illegal to have sex-selective abortion. So for example, you couldn't, kill your unborn baby because it was a girl if you found out it was a child. Or, if you find out a child has Down syndrome in utero, you can't kill that baby because of a defect. When we push pro-life legislation like that forward as technology advances, you have the pro-abortion side who is, challenging that in court. But that's a pretty dark position, right? That's the stake they have to take. They have to say, no, it's okay to kill a girl because she's a girl. It's okay to kill a baby because they have a birth defect, because they have Down syndrome or what have you, cystic fibrosis. That's the position they have to take. And I think as that's made more clear as those lines are drawn, and it's such a stark contrast, the pro-life position will continue to gain ground as it has.
How did look, I hate to rail against the media 24 hours a day, but how did they get to the point where they got so pro-abortion? I guess this is where I'm coming from on this. I can understand somebody who doesn't necessarily care about the issue. I even understand people who have had one when they're young, dumb, scared. I get that. I don't judge anybody, nor would I be qualified to do so. What I don't understand is openly cheering for the practice and cheering against things like March for Life, and I see it everywhere now.
Yeah. So the media, they have a stake in this because they're largely Democrats. I think it's 97% Democrats in the media. So as we've seen with Planned Parenthood, for example, they get taxpayer funded money. They get a lot of our money. They have huge funds. Celebrities fund them as well. And they dump that money back into Democratic candidates. So they help fuel the side of the political aisle that our media is on. So they have a stake in that as well. Also, on the other side of that, we have abortion, which has become a sacrament basically for, it's kind of like the litmus test is, are you a feminist? Are you for women's rights? Put that in scare quotes. So that gets tied up in it. So you want to flex your equality muscles and show what a good person you are. So it's twofold. It's helping the Democrat apparatus, and it's, showing off, virtue signaling what a good feminist you are.
Yeah, I don't know how that became a women's thing, too. I'll never understand that. But anyway, we're moving on to a different subject. Well, kind of the same one. Donald Trump, everybody remembers when he was talking about Obama's birth certificate, and he was born in Kenya, and this is pre-presidential Trump. Everybody remembers this. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I brought it up in the opening segment, and that, not to rehash that old thing, but Donald Trump seems to be the first Republican, at least president that I can think of, that is not ashamed at all of his base, and I mean none of it. People can yell about the birther movement and whatnot. I never got involved in it. I never cared. But I will tell you, I was a candidate for Congress back then. A lot of Republicans believed that and still believe it to this day. And Donald Trump's the first one, like the pro-life issue, to say, yeah, these are my people.
Yeah. Well, Trump's good at that. He's good at feeling what the people actually want. Look at 2016. Immigration. He was the only candidate willing to actually talk about that because he knew that's what people cared about. That's what people wanted. He's super perceptive. He has really good instincts, and that's why he'll pick up on this stuff and no one else will talk about it. I obviously don't agree with the birther stuff, but that's kind of what I'm talking about, this sixth sense that he has. So he's not going to apologize for anything either, obviously, as we've seen. So even if it wasn't, correct or what have you, President Trump's not someone who apologizes very often.
Do you see the Democrat Party moderating itself? And I know that sounds like a crazy question. You look at how nuts they think they are now, and everyone's like, oh, no, they're going to go full-blown commie, and that's the direction they're going. But they're going to start taking some serious beatings nationally on elections, and they have already the further they go. Doesn't the pendulum swing say at some point somebody's going to be like, okay, let's dial this down a notch and come back towards the middle a little?
Yeah, this election is going to be a really good test for Democrats. So right now they have Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, and Biden. So Biden's your quote unquote moderate, right? He's going to be like the not totally insane Democrat, although by regular standards, he's pretty nutty. So whatever happens in that primary, you can bet the Democrat apparatus does not want Bernie. They think they can work on Liz and get her more to the middle. Bernie, they know they have no control over. So they want Bernie, probably want him to have another heart attack. They want Bernie out because they do know that they're not going to win the general if they have this extreme loony Bernie Sanders, running in that general election. He's not going to move. That's going to be really hard for Democrats. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. They'll probably go with Biden. They'll figure a way. Maybe Warren, we know she can move, and they'll moderate, at least in a general election.
Amanda Prestigiacomo. Did I get that this time?
Yeah, that was good.
Nailed it. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We've got a lot more me. Hang on. Have you ever known somebody who struggles with anxiety? Maybe you struggle with anxiety. No, don't worry, I'm not about to do a pharmaceutical commercial on you here. Side effects may include death and bleeding from your eyes. No, I'm not doing something like that. What are you like when you go through anxiety? What are your friends like, your family members like? They're nasty, right? They're snappy. Why? Because that feeling of anxiousness, it just robs you of all your patience, of all your grace, of all your mercy for your fellow man. Have you ever had to go get up in front of a group or in front of a whole room or the corporate board and give a speech? And maybe you're somebody who doesn't like speaking in front of people? You're a mess, aren't you? Do you feel like talking? Do you feel like gabbing with your neighbor about the dogs pooping in the yard? No, you don't. What am I saying to you right now? I have no idea. I'm just kidding. Joe Biden is in over his head. Joe Biden wakes up every single day now and he has that stomach acid burn inside of himself. And that's why you're seeing a new side of Joe Biden you've never seen before. I'm about to show you a bunch of video of Joe Biden bumbling, which is not new. Joe Biden, again, snapping at a reporter, again, snapping at a supporter, calling him fat. Joe Biden is not doing these things because Joe Biden is a mean, awful person. No, Joe Biden is doing these things because he was a senator from Delaware for 30 freaking years and never got challenged at all, never got a challenging question, never got mired in controversy. And when you're a Democrat, you don't have to walk from your office to go do your votes and get assaulted by the reporters about what an evil, horrible devil you are. It's a good life to be a Democrat in Washington, D.C. So he lived that life for 30 years. Then he transitions from that life into the greatest job in the history of mankind. Yes, that job is Vice President of the United States of America. President of the United States would suck. And I mean completely suck. There's a reason all these guys look like they age 30 freaking years while in office. It's like being married to a feminist that just drains you of all life. Vice President never looks like that. Why do you think that is? You have no real responsibilities. You don't even have a real official capacity, but you fly around the world surrounded by bodyguards on the most luxury air travel you can find, luxury hotels. You mingle with the rich people. Ha, ha, ha. 8 years Joe Biden had to do that. How many hard questions did Joe Biden have to field during that 8 years? None. Half the time they rolled him out just so he'd say something dumb and we could all laugh. Ah, that Joe, he's crazy. Goodbye. Only now, those days are over. Now Joe Biden is running for the big boy seat. Now Joe Biden wants to be president of the United States of America. And he's in a primary, meaning the media isn't just going to give him a pass. They have their favorites. They love Elizabeth Warren. They love Pete Buttigieg or whatever his name is. So Joe Biden has had to answer some questions. And what you've seen from Joe Biden time and time again is this almost bizarre nastiness that just comes bubbling out of him. I want you to take a look at this video of him. I think this was yesterday with him and CBS reporter Ed O'Keefe.
Well, yesterday you said you accepted Bernie's apology and now you're attacking him. Why are you doing that? Why wasn't his apology enough, Mr. Vice President?
Right this way,
Why attack Sanders?
Why? You're getting nervous, man. Just calm down. It's okay. He apologized for saying that I was corrupt. He didn't say anything about whether or not I was telling the truth about Social Security.
Thank you guys. We gotta do it.
It was weird, right? It was awkward. And then you could almost see that moment where the seasoned politician came back at him and he realized, oh, okay, this looks bad. And he tried to, play it off. Oh, you look nervous, Ed. Gave him that little pat on the shoulder. Oh, it came bubbling out, ladies and gentlemen. You remember when I believe it was an Elizabeth Warren supporter stood up at this Joe Biden town hall and Biden just goes off on him? Here it is.
You're selling access to the president just like you. So you
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that. No one has heard that.
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and no. Well, yeah, you do. But look, here's the deal.
I'm not voting for you.
Well, I knew you weren't, man. You think I thought you'd stand up and vote for me? You're too old to vote for me.
Calls him a liar, calls him a fatso. and then tells him he's too old for him. When's the last time you saw a politician speak that way to somebody? Joe Biden is a man who's a backbench senator. He is a B-minus player, and they've got him in the A-plus spot, and the man is not ready for prime time, and he knows it. Here's another lovely Biden montage. Ask yourself this, ladies and gentlemen. Hate Barack Obama or love Barack Obama? I couldn't stand him. The man was ready for prime time. Hate Donald Trump or love Donald Trump? I love the guy. He's clearly ready for prime time. Does this look like a man who's ready for prime time?
If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight. Thank you very much. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, black kids, Asian kids.
We choose unity over division. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
I have more people supporting me in the black community that have announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus, the only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate, a whole range of people.
No,
my point is
that's not true. The other one is here.
I said the first. I said the first African-American elected. Watch what happened when those kids from Parkland came up to see me when I was vice president. They went under and some of you covered it.
Relate to infrastructure. How many unsafe bridges you still have here in the state of Iowa? And I was just in Ohio because they have more. They have more.
That's good stuff, people. Oh, if you only thought we had one montage, you got another thing coming. I have more.
Reduce the cost of drug prices. It allows all the drug companies it allows you to Medicare to negotiate. It should be free universal infant care, but here's the deal. Over 500 miles a day, 250 miles a day. There's no choice but for Nancy Pelosi that I think about the American people. I headed up the Recovery Act, which put more money into moving away from fossil fuels to solar and wind energy.
I suspect we're going to talk about Joe Biden a lot because as of now, I suspect he's going to be the nominee. He's still out there on the campaign trail while the other Democrat contenders for president are stuck in D.C. with some sham impeachment. So I suspect Joe Biden's going to win. So we're going to talk a lot about this. But remember this, ladies and gentlemen. Always remember this. You cannot make a B-minus an A-plus. You can't take Joe Biden off the backbench somewhere and throw him into the president's chair. It doesn't work that way. Just because somebody has done something forever doesn't mean they're great at it. A lot of very, very average people have coasted by on their jobs for a very, very, very long time. That don't mean they should be the CEO. And that's why you see him bumble, and that's why you see him snap at people, because believe me, Joe Biden knows it too. Now, Chuck Schumer, I've always said, if you want someone who can really understand you, who you can really have an intelligent conversation with, most of the time you just need to have that conversation with yourself. But every once in a while, you find a friend who's even closer than that, and apparently Chuck Schumer has. Take a look at this. He's talking with some lady, and then he's, hey, my imaginary friend George, get out of my seat. And then he sits down. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I swear on my life, I did not edit that video whatsoever. Chuck Schumer just walked up to an empty chair and kicked someone out of it before he sat down. Tell me again about the pharmaceuticals they're issuing these people. All right, we have more. We have Ash Gow joining us in just a second. Hang on. Joining me now, senior editor at the Daily Wire, Ash Gow. Ash, I have a question about Joe Biden, and this is what I find to be very, very odd, and maybe it's just human nature. The guy has been in politics for 3 decades in Delaware, which is not an important state. Don't yell at me if you're from Delaware. It's just not a major state anybody cares about.
hate it.
He's a Democrat, so he's never been asked any hard questions ever. Then he coasts along as Barack Obama's vice president for 8 years. My theory is this, Ash. We have him screaming at a reporter again yesterday. I think the guy is buried in over his head, and he knows it, and that's why he's getting so mean.
Oh, absolutely. And when it comes to Delaware, I do not like the state of Delaware either. But with Biden, he really is struggling on this campaign. I mean, I think he really did think he was going to coast on, look, I'm, sweet Uncle Joe. I was with Obama, everybody loves Obama. Why don't you love me? Just kind of like what Hillary wanted to do. Like, you all loved Bill Clinton, so why don't you love me, even though they're two totally different people? And you've just seen this kind of breakdown with Joe on the campaign trail. I mean, especially really since the Ukraine stuff came up and people have started bringing up his family, and now he's actually had to defend some things that he's done, that he said, while trying to condemn Trump for the same thing. And it's not really playing off that well, but he is still the most recognizable person, so it's not really damaging him that much right now.
I agree. It's not damaging him. It's just, if he's campaigning against Donald Trump, and by all accounts he is right now, he sounds terrible. And I'm glad you brought up the Hunter Biden stuff. We haven't gone into that much on this show just because I don't care about it a great deal. But the truth is, every time Joe gets asked about it, all he does is raise his voice and does this angry pointing thing at people. And it comes off, I think it comes off terrible. I understand maybe some people see passion. I think it just looks kind of nasty.
Oh, absolutely. When he's challenging people to push-up contests or calling them fat, and then trying to claim weeks later that he actually didn't say this person was fat. And it's like, well, there's audio. He's just really mad at anyone who dares question him. And I mean, there's a lot of questions. He's got a 40-year plus record. He's been for things that the Democrat Party is no longer for. He's, just me personally, his issues with campus sexual assault and this believe all women is a huge disqualifying factor. It's basically bash men, women never lie, and that's absurd. And so he has a lot to answer for, and he does not want to answer for it. I mean, I think he's just hoping that Bernie and Warren will attack each other some more so that they just kind of peter out and annoy people enough that he can just continue to coast, because that's really what's happening right now.
I understand the powers that be are clearly stacked against him. My goodness, even news organizations are stacked against him. But do you give Bernie Sanders a shot at winning this primary? I always thought that would be crazy, that it won't happen, that there's no chance. But a lot of smart people out there are saying there is a chance. What say you?
Well, I mean, if the DNC hadn't rigged the election in 2016, it would have been him versus Trump back then instead of Hillary. But now they're really trying to fight against him, or also doing the thing that they did with Trump, where they're trying to pull for him because they think he can't win. But you can tell they're kind of timid about that because Trump ended up winning. So they're trying to pull that back, but they're really, it's just not working, because they're trying to then push Elizabeth Warren, who is basically just riding Bernie's coattails. Like, if Bernie puts out legislation, Elizabeth Warren's for it. And then she tries to claim, she's for this and she's always been for this, and it was her bill somehow. So they try to push her because she's somewhere between Hillary and Bernie, at least as far as, likability on the Hillary side and then awful policies on the Bernie side. But they're just going to cancel each other out, and then Biden's going to be able to prevail.
Ash, I try to never make the mistake of thinking my enemies are geniuses or morons, because the truth is often somewhere in between. I've heard it said that Nancy Pelosi did this impeachment delay on purpose so she could keep Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Klobuchar stuck in the Senate while Biden's out there campaigning. Do you think she's doing some Machiavellian thing on behalf of Biden, or did it just kind of work out that way?
I think it just worked out that way, because wasn't there also a report that she got the whole idea from CNN? And then she was trying to claim, right? And then she was trying to claim that, she did that to get the upper hand on Mitch McConnell, which was never plausible is like, okay, so you're not sending him the thing he doesn't want you to send. Yeah, you've really got the upper hand there. So I don't think she really had much of a strategy at all here. And if she did, it failed miserably.
It did. It failed extremely miserably. All right. Ash, you've always been all over this campus sexual assault thing, this Me Too movement thing. What's your latest on that? Because you've always been bucking the tide, and I mean really bucking the tide on that stuff. Even when everybody and their brother had a new Me Too story, you've been on the forefront saying, let's slow down and let facts come out. What do you have brewing now?
Well, we have a new form of abuse that apparently only applies to women, at least in Australia. It's called reproductive abuse. And the things they describe sound terrible, hiding someone's birth control or pressuring them into having an abortion, which is kind of strange for the left to be upset about, considering that's Planned Parenthood's business model. But in none of the explanations about it and research that exists on it, do they talk about this kind of reproductive abuse being used against men, like women purposefully getting accidentally pregnant in order to keep a man around, or aborting his wanted child, or anything like that, right? It's just another form of abuse where women are victims, men are perpetrators, and that's just it.
What do you make of President Trump speaking at March for Life? What do you make of him being the first one? For one, I was shocked to find out he's the first one, but what do you make of all that?
Well, it's historical, and it really shows that this is a president who does care about life. And, we just haven't had that for a really long time. I mean, even George W. Bush, he was pro-life. He didn't speak at the march. Reagan didn't speak, I mean, for Trump to come out there and actually address the tens of thousands of people that come out in the cold every single year to march for life and to say that abortion is wrong and it is killing a human child. I mean, that is huge. And that is definitely huge in an election year when we continue to have polls showing that a majority of Americans don't want abortion on demand, like the left and Planned Parenthood tell us we do.
Ash, appreciate you very much. I'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Coming up, the greatest sports play I've ever seen in my life. Hang on. People, I have been privileged to live my 38 years and seen some pretty amazing athletic achievements in my time, from the Olympics to the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball. I thought I had seen it all. I thought I had seen the pinnacle until I saw this video. My goodness, look at this.
Quality of these guys, you wouldn't expect them to miss either, to be honest.
Well, he's very close to splitting the two red balls and getting to the jack. That's what the target is. Oh, look at this. Oh, that is ridiculous. That is just so good. It is ridiculous. What a ball. Oh. That was a...
That's amazing. I don't even know what that weirdo sport is. I don't even know if that sport exists anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. They may have been on a small island in New Zealand. I don't know what it's called. I don't know who that person was. I don't know what the network was. I don't know who the announcers were. In fact, I don't care. That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And I have no idea whether that guy can even speak English, but I'm going to try to get him on the show. We'll do it tomorrow one more time this week. See you.